historic neighborhood shall include the Grantville Historic District as listed in the National Register of Historic Places.
If you
Yes.
excuse me a minute.
Yeah.
Summer, will you please be my Valentine?
Oh,
I got this for you. We're not gonna see each other till after Valentine's Day.
thank you.
So I got it.
Sergeant, I appreciate that very
Okay.
much.
Okay,
You look
Carol.
nice tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, look at this. I can just pick out and put on 10 more pounds.
Yes.
What'd you get? Yum.
Paul, I'm sorry I didn't get you any.
That's okay. I'm fine. Yum.
I also got one for Wendy, but I guess,
Huh?
can you, I got one for Wendy. I was hoping she would be here.
Me too, but she sent me an email about 2 o'clock and said she was sick, throwing up.
Okay.
Mr. Lundy is supposed to be here. And I didn't bring my phone, so,
I have a telephone. Would you like to borrow it?
well, we'll give him a few more minutes. I thought that, Ruby might be here because she was very interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Are we gonna be talking about a grant today?
Not some, but not the details of it.
Okay. Because the city manager mentioned that we applied for a grant.
Oh yeah, you're applying for a grant for the survey. Yes.
Who does that, Three Rivers?
We helped your consultant kind of put this package together last year. Dennis.
Dennis Hartline,
Yeah. Now he's doing it again.
yeah. And see, he had to bring up his learning curve. 404 253 1411.
Hang on, someone, not that fast. Low battery, okay.
I think it's 404,
Okay,
I think it's
what else?
253 1411. No, that's not right. I don't know let's see. Maybe I got it here. Oh, let's see. No, I don't have it with me.
That's okay.
Okay. Well, I guess that makes this. I guess this is the local district then. Okay. Cool. I'm not a lawyer though. There, I did include in the presentation the new contact from the CLG governments. I've not talked to her yet, but Allison has notified us that her name is Paige Jennings. She's taking over for Sarah Rogers, if you remember Sarah.
Okay. There he is. Mr.
Good
Lane.
evening.
Hello.
Good evening, good evening, good evening.
You know, Mr.
Hey, Byron, how you doing?
Yeah, I believe I do. How's it going?
All right.
How are you?
How you doing, man?
He's so dressed up, we don't
Yeah,
know.
who are you?
Hey, I'm the guy down the street.
You the guy down the street. Well, I need to talk to the guy down the street.
All right.
Okay, let's move on with, I got another email from that man, I made a copy for him.
I don't believe that guy know what he's talking about. I really don't. So that's when it's over, I need to talk to you about the cemetery trust.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've got some information you might be interested in too. Okay, it's 6:33. The meeting will come to order. Roll call. Selma Cody is present. Marion Susan. Claude Raptis is absent. Baron Lundy is present. Penny Wynn is absent. We do have a quorum, and we are delighted to have Paul Gerald with us tonight, and he's going to do a presentation on a resource survey, and I'm assuming you're going to talk a little bit about design guidelines.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Have you all had time to read the minutes? And
Yes.
I entertain a motion to approve the minutes for December 7.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the minutes for December 16.
I motion that we approve the minutes for the December 16 meeting.
Aye, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. We have no old business tonight, and that brings us to our guest of honor, Mr. Paul Gerald. Okay, Paul, we'll turn the meeting over to you and let you go over your presentation.
Thank you, Selma, Madam Chairman. It's a pleasure to be with you all, as always. So I understand that you all are interested in updating your resource survey and interested in design guidelines to help your HPC with COA reviews and that kind of thing. And so I put together kind of a not too long ago a presentation, kind of going over why and how and what should be included. And I can make this available to you all. It's a little wordy in some places, but also I won't be going, word by word on some of it. So I tried to make it a little bit light. But so we'll just start with, kind of the state of historic preservation in the city of Grantville. What have you guys done up to this part so far, up to this day so far? So one of the first things that happened was you adopted your enabling legislation, your historic preservation ordinance in 1988. This is what established you as a board and put into place preservation as a city priority. A few years later, in '91, the Grantville National Register District was listed, and it encompasses most of that time the historic built environment of the city of Grantville. That's not uncommon, but it's not very, very common that whole cities get listed as a National Register District. One of the other ones that we have in our region is the city of Bowden, which was listed in 2009.
I'm sorry, the city of Bowden?
Bowden.
Bowden, Georgia, okay.
So it, along with you guys, most of the historic built environment is in the National Register District. And I'll go into some of the more details about what the difference between a National Register District and a local district is a little bit later. And a few years after that, a county-wide historic resource survey was completed. And that included the cities within Coweta County. That was done by Ellen Ehrenhardt.
Right.
And after that, I don't have the exact year, but you guys became a certified local government, which means that you take preservation seriously. That means you've done these things prior. And you are one of 10 cities in our region that are CLGs. We have 43 cities in our region, and only 10 of those are CLGs. So you have done a lot of work to become one of the proud and the few. And at some point, it might be in that ordinance, Selma, I didn't look at the date, but at some point after the Historic Resource Survey of '96, you all decided to make the boundary of the National Register District your local district, or your overlay district, which became the district that you take changes, design review for. You do design review for any kind of material change that happens in that area. So by doing that, you usually can confuse to lay people. When you say historic district, you mean the National Register district or the local district, but in your case, you kind of almost forget about the National Register district because everything falls under your local district. So that's what gives you the regulatory arm that you do.
The National Register district protects us in that it can never be removed.
That's true.
Or reduced.
Right.
Am I correct about that?
It takes a lot of work to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the local district can be.
It can. Yeah,
but
it
that
can.
takes a lot of work too.
It does. It does. And a lot of cities, they won't take a big chunk. Maybe like you guys did, they'll focus on, say, the historic commercial corridor only, or a significant residential neighborhood, and focus on those before, taking the whole city. And because that's for a small town, it's a lot to chew. You've got residential structures to deal with, you've got commercial structures to deal with, you've got institutional structures to deal with. But given your footprint's not that huge, I mean, you're a good sized city, but I can see the mentality of just go ahead and taking it all, because your square mileage is doable, but still, it's a lot. So again, your Grantville National Historic District, that's the outline board there. As you can kind of see barely, this is from a topo map. So you can see, I believe the topo map probably dates to the 60s or 70s. You can kind of see most of the built environment at that time is in your National Register District, which now has become your local district. So you can see the real concentration of residential structures there in your Mill Village, the very northern part of the city. You can see the darker clump of buildings in the middle, that's your downtown corridor. And of course the water tank is right here, right behind your city hall. And I just kind of inserted a city limits outline there of the city of Grantville, just to kind of show you. This does not incorporate a lot of your new development that has happened. Of course, some of your new development, though, post 2000s is not historic yet, but a lot of the homes that were non-contributing to this district are probably contributing now because they're of age.
Define contributing and non-contributing.
Contributing is, a contributing structure is it has to be at least 40 years of age or older. 40 years of age as in when it comes to the survey part of it. Now, for National Register, it's 50. And contain significant historic significance, either with a person or a style or local significance. And there's a whole other page that I can go into that tells you why things are deemed historic, what makes it historic. And that's, as most things, that's very subjective. But there's a few things, age, integrity, style, those things are easy triggers for historic. And as I mentioned here, your National Register District was approved, and it states that it's important due to architecture, due to commerce, due to community planning and development, and industry and transportation. So you have all these elements that make up the significance of the district. It's not just pretty houses with pretty windows, it's commercial, it's all those things. It's the railroad's historic in itself. So if there's something that happens to the railroad, like a construction project or something, that has to go under what's called the Section 106 review, because that has to be approved by the federal government. And it's considered a historic corridor. So I state here, your local district boundary is also the National Register District boundary, but the national part of it is just recognition only. It's taking these boundaries and making it your local district is what gives you, as the HPC, the regulatory arm that you have. But also, tax incentives are eligible for this National Register District. So any home owner or structure owner that wants to do rehab work to their buildings, if it's cost, advantageous for them to do so. They are eligible for state and federal tax incentives, which help them recoup some of the money of that rehab work. Don't ask me the details about that, because that's way out of my purview. So this is just a little excerpt of your ordinance. So why is preservation important to the city of Granville? Well, you codified how important it is. The bold statement there, the second line reads, in support and furtherance of its findings and determination that the historical, cultural, and aesthetic heritage of the city is among its most valued and important assets, and the preservation of this heritage is essential to the promotion of health, prosperity, and the general welfare of the people. That's legally binding ordinance of the city of Granville. It's pretty sobering, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But next to that, the ordinance is meant to help stimulate revitalization in your business district, in your neighborhoods, keep your aesthetic, your sense of place, and I mentioned the state and federal tax benefits. And all this is to help provide protection and preservation and rehab of all the historic properties located within your jurisdiction. That's a lot of words. I need a pretty picture. When I see a lot of words, I'm ready for a pretty picture. One of your great buildings, someone was telling me about the other day, your old Methodist church. Hopefully it'll be adaptively reused in a sensitive manner. You know, this is exactly the same structure that's in Manchester. Did you know that?
No.
Manchester First United Methodist is the same exact building.
Really?
And I'm not sure who the architect is, but you have a beautiful setting for this church.
Yeah.
Up on the hill, right between the streets. The one in Manchester is just right on the road in downtown, but it's still pretty. But it does not have the setting that yours has. Again, back to your preservation ordinance. And while we're here, as part of your ordinance, it says the commission's mandate is to conduct a survey of local historic resources. The commission shall compile and collect information and conduct surveys of historic resources within the city. So here's your other mandate this is part of the work that the Preservation Commission is supposed to do. You're not only here to give COAs and to be kind of the material change police, but you're promoting preservation in all aspects in the city. And really that starts with a survey. The survey is done to know what you have and what you don't have and what makes your community unique. So why a survey? It identifies buildings meant for listing on the National Register, but your whole city is basically on the National Register. You're going to do that. You've got that check. Assist in preservation efforts of CLGs. You are that. You designated local districts. And notice you can also designate local buildings. If it's extra special and it needs more attention, you can actually designate a building as a local landmark, which that gives. There may be something outside of your district that's important to the city of Granville that doesn't fall in your district that can't come across the HPC for review, but if the city deems a structure to be important, you can designate that structure alone, and it comes before the comes before the HPC for review as well. That's really more for local governments who have distinct districts and it may not cover all the historic resources in the community. Of course, aiding in preservation and land use planning, knowing what's out there, what kind of houses you have, what kind of structures you have. You want to promote your history. Of course, this makes your regular citizens aware of what's out there. Not everyone goes down every street, down every corridor. A lot of people stay at home, especially now. But I guess now, these last two bullets here, why survey, this is why you need to resurvey. They're recommended to be done every 10 to 20 years. Yours was done in '96. And now we have new resources that are historic that were not at that time. Also, you're using Historic Preservation Fund to fund this project, and then when you use those funds, if you haven't had a survey done in 20 years, your first project has to be a resource survey. your category B or A, I can't remember which one it is. More words, more pretty pictures. This is one of your great, beautiful downtown buildings in Grantville. Love it.
That's the one we
That's right. Yeah, I noticed that. And that's, if you wanted to dive into do's and don'ts in the city of Granville, that's another day. You have a lot of great do's and you have a lot of mistakes too. That's okay. So what's in the survey? Since your survey is being possibly funded by a Historic Preservation Fund from the National Park Service, it must include this list of items. And we have a few surveys that have been done in our region that are great examples for you, that have all these things in them that you can easily review. And if I can't, you should be able to go to the city's websites for that, and I can send them to you. For the city of Carrollton and the city of Hogansville, just down the road, both have been done in the past 5 years with all this stuff in there. Because part of your survey is not only just a inventory of your structures, it talks about the developmental history, it talks about what kinds of housing you have, so it's not just a go down the street, talk about each structure, it's a whole context. So here's our region, our 10 counties, and you can see here's the surveys that have been completed so far in our region. Yours being part of the county-wide Coweta County Survey of '96. But you can see other cities have had theirs done. Like I just mentioned Carrollton, their first survey was done in '88, but a 2015 update was done for parts of their city. And that's a great example of that, of all those lists that I showed you before. All that stuff is in the Carrollton survey, so you can look at that and kind of see what is needed. But you can see there's some early surveys that have not been resurveyed. Look at City of Jackson, '83. That definitely needs it again. Pike County's in the '80s. So that's, 70s and '80s was a big time for listing historic structure on the National Register and doing surveys. I'm not sure why, but I need to find out why the '80s and '70s and '80s were so heavy on that. But I will. So as I mentioned, local examples of 2 recent surveys that were done that contains all those required elements that you can kind of get your head around and look at are the City of Hogansville and the City of Carrollton. City of Carrollton used the HPF funding that you guys are looking to use, so that's a great example of an end product of what you're trying to do. So as we mentioned earlier, you have your National Register district is also your local district, your overlay district. And what this does is it tries to protect your community's historic properties through design review. That's what the HPC does. You can designate historic areas, but of course almost your entire city is already designated, so you wouldn't be looking to designate any more areas. One thing it does not do is it does not restrict the use of property, it does not restrict the use to which property is put in the district or require property owners to make improvements to their property. You can't be the code enforcement police and just go, oh, your awning's hanging off, or you're not the maintenance police. Your material changes to the structure. That's what comes before you. Of course, in your district, every change requires review by you all and approval based on local design guidelines. You don't have those, but like some communities, you do use the Secretary of the Interior standards. Those are very good. That's a good start, but the Secretary of the Interior standards are not Grantville. So back to the survey, you do your survey to find out what you have, what makes Grantville special and unique. And then you design your guidelines based on that. So design guidelines, they are used to illustrate and interpret preservation standards in your ordinance. Like I said, your Secretary of Interior standards and your ordinance are very vague. It gives you the impetus of what you're doing. but it doesn't give you the details of why you're making those decisions. It can be used as an effective public relations tool, so that really kind of helps the public know why this is appropriate, why this is not appropriate, and they're a key tool in directing the visual impact and growth in the community. So if there's infill that's happening, your design guidelines should be able to tell a builder that the structure proposed is not appropriate for the district, or it is appropriate for the district. Okay, pretty picture again. Give my mouth a chance to talk. Another great structure in Granville. Very unique structure, very unique features, worthy of protection for sure. There's a lot of great integrity left in these buildings. So the design guidelines can explain and interpret general design criteria. It identifies the historic character of your particular area. It's supposed to be able to show you clearly what is an appropriate addition and what is not an appropriate alteration. Of course, tools for designers and property owners. It's supposed to preserve the architectural character of your area, increase public awareness again, and avoid demolition by neglect. It cannot be used to affect property at the interior of a property or a site of use. Only the exterior. It cannot regulate exterior paint color, just like the local district. The HPC cannot make decisions on paint color. That's a non-regulatory item. And it kind of goes back. It can't limit growth or regulate where the growth takes place. That's your zoning ordinance. That's the job of your zoning ordinance. It cannot guarantee that all new construction will be compatible with the historic area. Hopefully with your HPC design review, you can help minimize that. It cannot control how the space within the building is being used, like going back to the interior part. And it cannot prohibit new construction or additions to historic buildings. Design guidelines simply ensure that new construction additions are compatible as possible in the district. So your design guidelines are your guide, you know. So this is all up for interpretation. It's the HPC's decision to make what's appropriate and not appropriate for your area.
Can I ask you a question before we go?
Yes, sir.
On this last slide, it says prohibit new construction or additions to historic buildings.
Right.
Would you explain that to me one more time?
Sure. So what I think this means is the design guidelines cannot prohibit, say, a structure going in next to a historic structure, but it should be able to give you the guidance to approve a design that fits the district, basically. So new construction is going to happen.
It has to be compatible with the design of the historic district.
Yes, it should. That's what the design guidelines should be giving you. It should be giving you form and style and appropriate infill design. And I think it says it cannot prohibit additions to historic buildings because additions can happen, but they have to happen in appropriate areas. The rear, away from the view shed, if it's on the side, in the back, kind of thing. So,
But not in the front.
but not in the right. And the design guidelines are supposed to help make that choice easier and clearer for the applicant and the HPC to make a decision on. I love this view in the Mill Village, going up the street there. As you can see, the pyramidal style structures are all pitched the same. You wouldn't want a structure coming in there with a gambrel roof, Dutch style or anything. You'd want something that would, new construction can go, so I guess that's kind of what this goes back to. Cannot prohibit new construction, but say if one of these got so bad it had to be demolished and if somebody wanted to build something new, they can easily build something new that looked just like this, or similar enough, in pitch and style and form, street layout, They wouldn't put it way back on the street, they wouldn't put it way up on the street, you know, so it's all about site planning and aesthetics. So your design guidelines to help make these decisions should include, like your survey, kind of an introductory explanation of why. It'll include a review of your Preservation Commission design review process, history of your district, character defining features, guidelines for treatment of historic properties, like I was just saying, guidelines for new construction. You can also put infill there. Guidelines for demolition, so the process that has to be adhered to for demolition. Resources and references, glossary of terms, you know, explaining what all those big preservation words mean. And of course, the basis for all the Secretary of the Interior standards, which kind of gives us the meat of why we're putting these together. So you can actually kind of see in what the design guidelines should include, kind of is almost pulled directly from your survey. This is a great example that I like to show people. The city of Monticello in Middle Georgia. Theirs is very easy to read and it's very easy to understand for me. The city of Hogansville has design guidelines too that were done, I think back in the 90s, mid-90s, but it's very wordy, you know. And this one's available online, and I've downloaded it where I can give it to you as well. But as you can see, it talks about what building types are prevalent in the district. So this is information that would come, a lot of this information would come from your survey. Here's an example of what the design guideline kind of shows. It shows you the form and the scale. So just like the picture of the village that I showed you, roof pitches are the same, the heights are the same. That grayed out building, that could be a new building, you know. But what you don't want is something too tall, like in the common mistakes column there, too low or flat. Of course, again, the design guideline is not law, it's just a guide. It doesn't guarantee that these will happen, but this is something that's supposed to help keep the integrity of your district. Knowing this has been an issue here in the city of Grantville, I pulled this excerpt of the Monticello design guideline as well. Fences. You're not saying no fences. You're saying appropriate fences. So not here where it's too tall and not appropriate for the district, but put in a fence that is appropriate for the district. But this one is talking about common mistakes. The fact that the fence chosen for the bottom one does not fit the time or the design of the house. The house could be very simple in a vernacular style, but somebody wants to put a real high style Victorian iron fence in front of it. That's not particularly appropriate. So it's all about time, you know, context of the structure, site, landscaping. There's a lot of factors that go into making a decision about one property. So really the takeaways for me are your ordinance is the thing that gives you the legal support for your preservation efforts. It's your mandate that establishes your HPC. Your survey, your updated survey will tell you what you have and what needs to be preserved. Your local district is what is used to help keep your sense of place, maintain your historic integrity, and to implement design review. And the design guidelines will help give you best practices to reach your preservation-based outcomes, incorporating all the others that we talked about. Now, I just want to say, remember that every community is unique. Grantville is not Madison. Grantville is Grantville. Grantville is not Sonoy. Guidelines should reflect your local preservation goals. Everything is very localized. You cannot regulate paint color, not that you are. And at this place, the city of Granville, it matters. The preservation efforts here matter, the structures here matter, everything here that you have is important. Because it tells your story. It's the sense of place that what makes the city of Granville the city of Granville. And I think you have a lot of resources worthy of preservation for sure. So more information on design guidelines, resources. For this presentation, I pulled some information from the National Park Service website. They give a great outline of what and how for design guidelines. And I can give you the link to that. The link, so when I send the link out, if I send the preservation, if I send the presentation out to you all, the link should be live and you can go to them. You should be a member of the Georgia Alliance for Historic Preservation Commissions. If not, you definitely need to do that. It's very cheap and there's a lot of great resources on there. And now, you used to contact the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Historic Preservation Division. The Historic Preservation Division is now under the Department of Community Affairs, not DNR. So that's a recent change, and they've just kind of recently physically made that move. So here's my contact. That's me at the top. Paige Jennings, who I have not met yet, is the new Certified Local Government Coordinator. So she would be a great contact for you all. She just started, so give her a minute to kind of learn. But that's really all I had, Selma. I know there might be some questions, and I know it's a lot of information, but I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. That was a good presentation. I appreciate that. I do have a question, and I'll turn it over to the members in just a second. We had an application recently, and a question of windows came up. Mm-hmm. And that this was an old house. And in some parts of the house, it had 6/6, it had 9/9. Really kind of confusing. Mm-hmm. Then we got into replacing those windows. And what we are hearing from the public is they want energy efficient windows, and they are of the opinion that the only way they can do that is to completely replace the windows. Mm-hmm. Do you have any ideas about how to address that when you're going through the public hearings and COAs and making a final decision?
Windows are definitely a major issue for HPCs. The same Monticello guidelines that I showed you recommend at all costs, every effort be made to keep the historic windows. Of course, you're going to get into the cost burden part of it too, but and I'm not the expert, but there are a lot of methods that you can do to historic windows that will make them more energy efficient. And I'm not the expert on what that is, but it is recommended that you keep the historic windows. But I think it's just up to the individual HPC to decide if window replacement is appropriate or not. There's no federal or local rule that says you cannot replace a window. Just like your design guidelines will say, first choice is to keep the windows, but if you cannot because of cost or because of whatever, you have to make compromises. So of course the first choice is to keep your windows, but you cannot force someone to keep the windows. I think there are a lot of new window salesmen out there that are really pushing these new windows, and I think it's a shame that people are thinking that they're saving money by doing that. I think they might be saving money short term with energy costs, but these windows are not made like the old windows. They're not going to last as long as people think they are. So it's quite the issue. I would say window replacement is probably one of the top issues that HPCs have to face. That and demolition.
Mr. Lundy, do you have any questions?
Windows, I hear you saying that, it's not imperative that they, put the same kind of window back in there. That they can put other windows, but the windows has to be the same size as what's there, right?
Well, see, the word have to is an issue, because all these guidelines are recommendations. And if you recommend or you deny a COA because someone wants to replace a window, you can deny it, and they can appeal to city council. So there is an appeal process, but so the point of having design guidelines is to show people why not to do certain things. So you look at these beautiful windows here. You've got those beautiful arches on the top tier there. You know, if someone came in and put 6/6 in there, you've almost completely bastardized the facade of that structure. And I think the design guidelines are meant to show that, you know, to show the whys and why nots. And I didn't pull that particular slide, but let me see if I put it in my folder here. And what Monticello put in their design guidelines for windows, and I'll show you what we're talking about. Now, I am always up for being corrected if I'm stating something wrong. So, let's see. Let's show you this. If I can make it. Let's see if this helps. So this is Monticello. This is what I pulled from earlier. In purpose, all the stuff that I was talking about that needs to be in there. I'll show you the window part here coming up. Where's the good window? Come on. Might be residential.
There you go.
There's one. See A?
Yeah.
You've got the what could have been a 6/6, and now it's an infill window, 1/1. The integrity of that structure has been very much compromised. So the goal for windows, it says, primary goal is to maintain the historic windows of their design and placement. Actions to achieve the goal: maintain and preserve historic windows, repair damaged portions of windows rather than replacing. Windows damaged beyond repair should be replaced with windows of the matching materials and design. Maintain the window configuration of the facade. New windows on the side and rear elevations should relate to historic windows in the following ways: use matching materials, matching of similar size, using similar design. This is only a guide. Your design guideline is not law. So it's all up for interpretation, and hopefully the person applying for those window replacements can see that there's other options and how it can affect the historic structure. So this kind of shows you what some design guidelines kind of show you what mistakes are. Doors, same thing.
So, what you're saying here is, if they wanted to modify the outside of that building, that they can do it. And, well, what would our options be? Could we have any right to tell them what windows to put in, or they could?
You can certainly make recommendations, yes.
So if we had somebody that came in with windows, now the windows were 6 by 9 by 9 whatever. They wanted to put a 6 by 6 in there. It would be okay.
Well, it's not okay. You would give the reasons why you would prefer a 9/9. And sometimes you have to compromise, you know. But it's your right as an HPC to deny that. If it does get a denial from the HPC, then the applicant can appeal to the city council.
See, where I'm going with this, I wondered if this is my 30-minute, 4th meeting.
Mhm.
Sitting here.
You need to go to the training when it comes up. It's probably online right now, but.
We had a house that's on 21 Smith Street. They just rehabbed it. Now, that house, I've been here all my life. I know how the house looked back 30, 40, 50 years ago. When those people rehabbed that house, they bought that house back exactly like it used to look 40 years ago, 50 years ago. You can't tell it. And I would like to see everybody that's gonna rehab a historic building to meet those same standards.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to look just like it did 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have that right?
Well, you can interpret your design guidelines to say that, yes. You can say, according to our design guidelines and our mandate, we believe that this is the right choice, and they have a right to appeal, you know? So, but sometimes you have to, it might be double cheaper for them to do 6/6s because they're less paint or less whatever, you know. And does it compromise the structure a little bit? Probably, but you know, sometimes you have to meet your applicants halfway.
Most of the people that come into our town
Mhm.
to rehab these, they flip them.
Right,
They buy them to flip them.
right.
And
It's
they're
happened
gonna
a
make
lot
a lot
of
of money off of them when they flip them.
Oh yeah,
What they're trying to do is invest as the least
little as
amount
possible.
they can to make as more they can on the other end.
right.
I know that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not willing to give in and compromise.
Right. Yeah, that's your choice for sure.
You know, because I know they're gonna make their money back on the other end.
Right. Oh, I know.
I don't feel like we should compromise with them. Whatever's there, that's how I want it to look.
Right.
When we in private.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
May I say something?
Sure.
Sarge, you got questions?
Yeah, it's certainly our choice, but it's not, we don't really have a whole lot of legal standing.
We don't have one?
A whole lot of legal standing. I'm sorry, Mr. Lundy, did I interrupt
No,
you?
go ahead, I'm listening.
Let me get on the camera here, I'm not trying to be.
Oh, that's why you got on that suit and tie. You wanna be a movie star or something.
Well, yes,
All right.
a historic one. Paul, and Ms. Lundy, I agree with you, but I don't see where we've got any teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, all this is nice, we can have ordinances and, you know, it's gonna go to city council, depending who's on there, it's gonna go ahead and approve it. You know, despite what we say. What do we do, and has there been any city that has done this? I think the biggest weapon we have is persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
To change the perception of what a historical district should be. We want to marry up the people who love history and want to buy into a historical district. After they get through flipping, if the house survives, then maybe we can get an owner in there that is going to enjoy living in a historical district. Up in Buffalo, New York, the Elmwood Avenue area, I mean, everybody over there loves history and they love the buildings and they remodel them and et cetera, et cetera. What do we do here? Has there been a small city a city the size of Granville that has done the marketing, the promotional, that we can maybe model?
Well, there is that educational part of it, you know, that's until the people know about it, you know, and then they go, I gotta do what? When I want a change, you know, it's better to be upfront about it. But of course, you know, when ordinances and stuff like this are this old, you know, the education part's been a long time ago, you know, so I think the part of the HPC's job is to keep the education for the citizens up, and that can be done through brochures, all sorts of stuff.
Is there any city that has been successful at that you can give us a reference?
Well, the city of Hogansville is actually working on promoting their districts again through some educational efforts, so they're a great example down the road to learn from. They've not put it together yet, but yeah, it's all about making your community care about it, you know, and just to know that you as an HPC are not here to just regulate and to say yay or nay, but is to promote the integrity of the area, you know, the integrity of your community.
What are the sharpest laws that we can have? Is it Georgia law, or is it just what we do here in the city?
You know, I think the most power is going to come from the most local. And you've done what you can. You know, you've got your overlay district, you've got a national register district, you've got, you've done the things you're supposed to do. Now it comes down to the code enforcement folks to kind of
Thank you.
come down to help you enforce these things, you know, and you've got, and you're probably right, there's not a whole lot of bad you can do to a person that doesn't obey your COA denial, but there's citations that can go out, there are fines that can be put into place, so there are some things that can be done. And that should be stipulated in the ordinance. So.
Do we have that kind of language in our ordinance?
What's that?
That we can find the people that don't adhere to the guidelines of the HPC?
That we can find them?
Yes.
No, I mean, that's not in the ordinance. The only thing we can do is close them down if they don't stop work, or we can put a cease and desist order.
Right.
If they don't,
I was pretty sure that communities can fine, say a person demolishes a building without prior knowledge of the city or permission. I'm pretty sure that's a finable offense.
That's just on demolition.
Mainly on demolition, right? Yeah, they cannot be fined because they didn't obey your COA denial, right?
I tried to have a conversation, well, I did have a conversation with a woman that was supposedly head of the county real estate board.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her whether or not she ever disclosed to any of her clients
Mm-hmm.
that if they were buying in a specific area of Granville,
Mm-hmm.
that they were buying within the historic district. And she said no.
Mm-hmm.
And she really did not seem to be interested in disclosing that to her.
I understand.
And my question, in going to some of the training classes that I've attended, I have heard commissioners there say that they had support of the local real estate board, and also that I believe they said that they had it entered on the tax records that that particular parcel was in a historic district. Do you know anything about that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that may be something that we might want to pursue in terms of full disclosure. Community support is, I think it would be beneficial if we had a website and if we had a Facebook page. I think that would be.
You have a start of a website on the city's website.
Right, but people don't, maybe they wouldn't go there for, they would.
Yeah. But the fact that you are a part of the city, you're an arm of the city
And
is.
there is information there.
I noticed that you had a kind of a newer web page, and the city of Hogansville just has a new web page. Almost looks like the same designer.
I don't believe many people go to websites anymore.
Right.
Facebook is hot.
Yeah.
And-
Well, a presence on Facebook wouldn't hurt too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then after that is YouTube.
And you can do little snippets of appropriate techniques, you know. And, of course, Facebook's you get the good and the bad, you know,
Yeah,
with
this is
Facebook.
true.
So
This is true.
it's difficult to
It's the wild, wild west.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Selma, if you want to do a Facebook page, I'll be happy to contribute my knowledge.
Okay, would appreciate that. I think that's a good place to start, you know.
But-
Education, I think, is the key,
It is.
because right now, I'm sure these people that just come in and if they have property in the historic district, they can't get a building permit, and they come to City Hall, and they're told they can't get a permit until they come before the HPC, and that's maybe the first time they've heard about it.
Right. Right.
And a lot of properties are being flipped in Granville.
That's happening everywhere.
Right.
And one thing that is happening is, and one thing you can rule on that's paint related is a brick building that has never been painted before. Now that kind of thing is something you can deny paint wise.
Well, let me tell you about that.
Because that's happening a lot with the flippers too.
Well, what do they call it when they paint the building?
Whitewashing.
What?
Whitewashing.
No,
Oh.
when they put a mural on it.
Oh.
Okay. I've contended that if anybody wants to put a mural on a building, they have to come before the HPC.
Absolutely.
The city manager and I disagree on that. But it is defined in the ordinance as, it doesn't say mural, it defines it as something else. I can't think of the word right now. But, you know, I have noticed in Newnan, they're painting a lot of their buildings. And even in Hogansville, they painted some of their buildings, you know, put a mural on the side of it.
Right. Yeah. I'm not certain how to answer you on the mural thing, because that's.
You know, if the changes are going to be made in that term. But, okay, let's go back to what you said. Whitewashing, what did you say?
Is it whitewashing? There might be another term for it. That's not
In
coming
other
to me
words, if
now.
the building has been painted and they try to whitewash it,
Or no, a building that has never been painted, a brick building that's never been painted before, that it wants to be painted. Now that's a material change that you can deny.
oh, okay.
You're not regulating the color, but it's the fact that paint is going on to a brick building that's never
That
been
has
painted
never been
before.
painted.
That's a material
Got it,
change.
Got it,
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions?
And I'm gonna do some more window research for you, Mr. Mundy. But I'm pretty sure you can't.
The other thing that we've run into is some of the people that have come before us have wanted to replace doors with windows or windows with doors, vice versa. So we've run into that too.
Siding issues.
Right. Right.
So if you can get us some information on that, I think that would be good. Any other questions, Sarge?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Paul. You
You're
did
welcome.
a great job. We
I'm glad to be
appreciate
with
it.
you again. It's always nice to be in front of you all.
Is that presentation available?
Yes, I can send it to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that'd be great. Okay. Any other thing to come before the commission tonight?
Yes, sir.
Can the audience see what you look like without the mask, please?
Oh, it's not as pretty with the.
Just, okay, that's Paul right there, okay.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Welcome.
Thank you, Paul, for coming.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay.
I would ask you to, but everybody knows what y'all look like.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Who's that?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second, okay. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Let the record show that we adjourned at 7:30. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.